There is something inside you that is far more dangerous than anything happening in the world. It does not make headlines. It does not appear on screens. But it quietly shapes your life, your relationships, and the way you see other human beings. And most of the time, you are not even aware of it. You may think the greatest threat to humanity comes from outside, from events, from systems, from forces beyond your control. But have you ever looked closely at your own mind, at the way you react to others, at the way you hold on to hurt, to anger, to judgment? Because what you carry inside you does not stay inside you. It moves, it spreads, it influences how you speak, how you act, how you respond to the people around you. You get hurt by someone, and you hold on to it. You replay it in your mind. You justify your feelings. You build a quiet resistance toward that person. And without realizing it, you create distance. Then that distance becomes coldness. That coldness becomes indifference. And sometimes it becomes hostility. This is how separation begins. Not in large events, but in small moments. In everyday interactions. In the way you look at another person and see not a human being, but an idea, a label, a memory. You see someone and immediately the mind says, I know who they are. You reduce them to past experiences, to opinions, to categories. And in that moment, you stop seeing them as they are. You are no longer meeting a living human being. You are meeting your own thoughts about them. This is where connection is lost. Krishnamurti often spoke about how thought creates division. Thought separates you from others by building images. Images about yourself. Images about other people. Images about how things should be. And once those images are there, you are no longer in relationship. You are in comparison, in judgment, in defense. You want to be respected. You want to be understood. You want to be valued. And when you don't get that, you feel hurt. And from that hurt, you begin to protect yourself. You become more careful, more guarded, less open. But the other person is doing the same thing. They are also protecting themselves. They are also carrying their own fears, their own wounds, their own expectations. So two people meet, but neither of them is truly open. Each one is holding on to their own story, their own image, their own pain. And this creates a subtle form of conflict. Not visible, not dramatic, but constant. You may call it misunderstanding. You may call it personality differences. But if you look deeply, it is something else. It is the inability to see another human being without the interference of thought. So the question is not how to fix relationships, not how to become a better person, not how to learn techniques of communication. The question is, can you see what is actually happening inside you as you relate to another? When someone criticizes you, what happens? There is an immediate reaction, a tightening, a defense, maybe anger, maybe withdrawal. And instantly, the mind starts to explain, to justify, to blame. But if you stay with that reaction, without trying to change it, you begin to see something deeper. You begin to see the fear of being hurt, the fear of not being valued, the need to protect an image of yourself. And that image is very fragile. It depends on what others say, what they think, how they respond to you. So you are constantly adjusting, trying to maintain that image, trying to avoid anything that threatens it. This is exhausting, and it creates distance between you and others. Because when you are protecting an image, you are not present. You are not truly listening. You are not truly seeing. You are filtering everything through that image. But what happens when you become aware of this whole movement? Not intellectually, but directly, in real time. You notice the reaction. You notice the urge to defend, but you do not immediately act on it. You simply observe. And in that observation, something begins to soften. The reaction loses its intensity. The need to protect begins to fade. Because you see that the image you are protecting is not real. It is just a collection of thoughts, of memories. And when that image is not so important, you are more open, more available. Now when someone speaks to you, you can actually listen. Not to reply, not to defend, but to understand. And that changes everything. Because real listening is rare. Most people are not listening. They are waiting. Waiting to respond. Waiting to defend their position. But when you truly listen, without resistance, without judgment, the other person feels it. They feel seen. They feel understood. And in that moment, something shifts between you. There is less tension, less conflict. There is a space where understanding can happen. And that space is where compassion begins. Compassion is not something you practice. It is not something you force. It appears naturally when there is no barrier between you and another human being. But as long as there is fear, as long as there is hurt, as long as there is the need to protect an image, that barrier remains. So the real question is not how to love others. It is how to understand yourself. Because when you understand yourself, the things that block love begin to dissolve. And when those things are not there, what remains is something very simple, very natural, a sense of care, a sense of connection, a sense that the other person is not separate from you. And from that understanding, a different kind of relationship is possible, not based on expectation, not based on control, but on attention, on presence. And in that presence, there is no conflict. There is only the possibility of meeting each other as you are in this moment. And perhaps this is where something truly new begins. Not in trying to become more loving, more kind, more patient, but in seeing clearly the ways in which we are not. Because when you see something false as false, it naturally falls away. You do not have to fight it. You do not have to discipline yourself to remove it. The seeing itself is the ending. If you see clearly that holding on to resentment only hurts you and separates you from others, there is no need to force yourself to let go. The understanding ends it. But we rarely look at our resentment directly. We justify it. We say, I have a reason to feel this way, and perhaps you do. Perhaps someone really did hurt you. Perhaps what happened was unfair. But the fact remains, the hurt continues inside you. And as long as it continues, it shapes your life. It shapes how you relate to others. It becomes a quiet filter through which you see the world. So the question is, can you look at that hurt without escaping from it, without blaming, without explaining, without trying to get rid of it? Just look. Feel it fully, the weight of it, the tension, the memory. When you stay with it like that without movement, something begins to unfold. The hurt is no longer just a story. It becomes something you are directly aware of. And in that awareness, there is no resistance. And where there is no resistance, there is a different kind of energy. An energy that is not pushing or pulling, not holding or rejecting. And in that space, the hurt begins to dissolve. Not because you wanted it to end, but because you understood it completely. This is the nature of real change. It is not gradual. It is not the result of effort. It happens instantly when there is complete understanding. But complete understanding requires attention. And attention cannot exist when the mind is distracted by becoming something. When you are trying to become better, you are never fully here. You are always moving toward an idea, toward a future. And in that movement, you miss what is actually happening now. So can you stay with what is, not what should be, not what you want to become, but what is actually taking place inside you in this moment? You may find fear, you may find loneliness, you may find confusion, and the instinct is to move away from these feelings, to fix them, to replace them with something more pleasant. But if you stay, if you observe without choice, those feelings begin to reveal their structure, their movement, their origin, and in that understanding, they lose their grip. This is not something mystical. It is very practical. Because when fear is not controlling you, you respond differently to people. You are not defensive, not reactive. When loneliness is understood, you do not try to fill it with distractions or dependence. You are comfortable being with yourself. And from that, your relationships are no longer based on need. You do not use people to escape from yourself. And this is where love becomes possible. Love is not attachment. It is not dependency. It is not the need to be reassured or validated. Those things may feel like love, but they are rooted in fear, in insecurity. And where there is fear, There will always be conflict. But when the mind is free from fear, even for a moment, there is a different quality. A quiet openness, a sensitivity. You begin to see others not as a means to an end, not as a reflection of your needs, but as human beings, just like you, carrying their own struggles, their own pain, their own confusion. And when you see that, not as an idea, but as a fact, something changes. There is a natural kindness, not forced, not cultivated. It simply arises. You are more patient, more understanding. Not because you are trying to be good, but because you see the whole movement of human experience in yourself and in others. And that seeing removes the barrier between you and them. When there is no barrier, there is no division. And where there is no division, there is no conflict. So perhaps what we are afraid of is not outside of us. It is inside. The fear, the hurt, the separation we carry. And the moment we begin to understand it, deeply, honestly, without escaping, that is where everything begins to change. Not just for you, but for every relationship you have. Because when you change in this way, your relationships change. And when relationships change, the whole structure of how we live together begins to shift. So maybe the most important thing is not to try to fix the world, but to understand the movement of your own mind. And in that understanding, there is the possibility of a completely different way of living. A life where there is less fear, less conflict, and far more space for something we rarely experience. A simple, quiet, genuine care for one another. So perhaps the real danger is not something happening far away. It is the unnoticed patterns within us, the constant judging, the quiet resentment, the need to defend and to be right. These seem small, almost harmless, but they shape the way we live with one another every single day. When you begin to see this clearly, not as an idea but as a fact in your own experience, something shifts. You become more attentive, more aware of how quickly the mind creates distance, how easily it turns a human being into an image. And in that awareness, there is already a change. You pause before reacting. You listen a little more deeply. You feel a little more fully. Not because you are trying to be better, but because you are actually present. From that presence, a different kind of relationship becomes possible. One where there is no need to dominate, to prove, or to protect an image. There is simply a meeting, honest, open, alive. And when even a few moments like that exist between people, something beautiful happens. The walls begin to soften. The sense of separation begins to fade. You realize that what you seek from others is the same thing they seek from you. To be seen, to be understood, to be treated with care. And maybe that is where real peace begins. Not as an idea, not as a goal, but in the way you look at another human being, without fear, without judgment, without distance, just as they are, just as you are. And in that simple seeing, there is already the beginning of something new.